All right, three, two, one. Welcome everyone to the post-game chop up with Nate and Steve. UMass, wow, coming to Tallahassee and they get a spoonful of ass whipping, 59-3. Florida State dominates on the ground, win third straight game. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, it's nice to see. It's been a while since we've seen something like that out of Florida State, even against FCS programs. We've struggled. So to see us actually come out and just dominate, and my biggest takeaway is we seem to have learned from that Jacksonville State loss. Jacksonville State, we talked about how we expected to win, and we tried a whole bunch of stuff in that game, trying to work on passing game and all that kind of stuff. We did none of that playing around. We came out and we just ran the ball down their throats and we just dominated the game. And that's the kind of thing I want to see out of Norvell. Okay, you made a mistake against Jacksonville State in preparation. How do you fix that? How do you learn from that going forward? This game shows that he's willing to learn and willing to fix those mistakes. And it's nice to see. It's really nice to see, to be able to have those learned lessons.
Yes. The caveat of the game is this was UMass. This is a game they coming in one of the worst teams in the country the last 5 years. So, again, to my big takeaways, the same as Steve's, is that Florida State did what they're supposed to against a much inferior team, and it didn't look like it was much of a struggle. Despite that opening kickoff, Florida State, their defense shut them down really quickly. The field goal was set up by the field position, but other than that, Florida State just dominates. So, I have a question: what happened with Milton? FSU experimented with Milton, and that's done now. I think that also Purdy is also showing enough to be the full-time second string guy. I mean, he's done what he's got to do in practice, and he's the future Sim and Travis next year. It's going to be the battle who's number one.
Yeah, with Milton, it's just you could clearly see it in the games that he did play. He's not healthy, and he's not 100%. And, obviously he's done after this year, and Travis is the quarterback. Travis is the guy moving forward, clearly. And, Purdy showed he's, gotten a lot better today. And, if Travis was to go down, I'm not sure if I'd say Purdy's definitely the guy to come in over Milton, but as far as like getting these kind of reps and stuff like that, yeah, there's no reason to give him to Milton. Give him to Purdy, let him build and grow,
sure, yeah.
So, but if Travis was to go down, I don't know if we'd necessarily see Purdy over Milton. Maybe. It just depends on how Purdy's looking in practice and if he's truly ready. But yeah, Travis is the guy moving forward, and there's no reason to play Milton in a game like this. None. Let Purdy get the reps and go forward.
Hey, William, thanks for checking outside of Chicago. Yeah, the buy-in is real. How about that?
Yeah,
really, since that game against Jacksonville State, maybe the first half against Louisville, the team has significantly looked better. In terms of penalties, in terms of just the support from each other, to the accountability that you see on the field, with guys getting upset at the other guys to make a boneheaded play. That these players have bought into what Norvell and his coaching staff is doing. That's why. Yeah, some of it is a little bit of opponent based, but they went to Carolina 17-point underdogs and they dominated that game. So now FSU's won 3 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's UMass. Yeah, they are awful. They probably be a 500 team in the FCS, if that. Yes, all that is true. But even still, like, we haven't seen that kind of domination in half a decade. Really, we just haven't, even against FCS teams. So the buy-in is absolutely real. This is a completely different team. If you were to look at the stats from the second half of Louisville, Syracuse, this game, and the North Carolina game, and we haven't put together, 16, I guess 14 quarters like that in a row in a long time, no matter who the opponent is, from the defensive line and, to the pass defense, throwing the ball, running the ball down people's throat, like every facet of the game, we've looked good in all of those quarters. That the only thing you could say is we've let some quarterbacks run on us. Okay, that's about it. Howell and the Syracuse quarterback, they got some good runs on us. Other than that, I mean, what do you got to say? So yeah, this team is a completely different team than we've seen the last 4 years. Completely different team, and that's because they're buying into Norvell and these coaches and what they're selling and what they're coaching them to do. They're doing it.
This is the post game chop up with Nate Steve at the Voice of College Football. Make sure you listen in live every Wednesday to the Voice of College Football live call-in show. I'm sure that Florida State fans are gonna have a lot to say. After what happens today, it's going to see what happens next week. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Nate Greer 26. You can follow Steve at SPNoel51. So let's run down the stats here real quick. Jordan Travis, again, he's not going to put up a lot of numbers in passing. He's 5-10, 123 yards, efficient, but again, it's what he can do with the ball in his hands. Coming into this game on the No Game Day podcast, I said that FSU should be able to clearly run for 350, and they ran for a lot more. They ran for 365. So right about where I thought. But Corbett, again, phenomenal. 11 carries, 11.5 yards per rush. Clearly the number one guy for FSU. It's going to be interesting to see, what carries over. But this team is now, I think, has found their identity on offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Just a lot of that zone read, let Travis run that, and pound the ball. Especially now that we have a healthy offensive line, and some people might, Love Taylor and Gibbons didn't play today. Are they healthy? They could have played today. They both were actually dressed out. They just didn't play. So
Gibbons did play and got injured.
Right. So, but Love Taylor, he's on the sideline dressed out. He could have played. So I don't think it's anything serious next week. I think both of them will be starting. But
for sure,
with that healthy offensive line, we are able to do what we want to do, especially the most important piece is having the two tackles and Smith at center. It makes a huge difference. So, we're going to continue to take shots downfield, when the opportunity arises. And, it's good to see us start to throw across the middle a little bit more and more. Wilson dropped an easy pass, but after that, it was nice. And, we certainly have an identity.
He made up for it on that one, on that
Absolutely.
On that deep out. He made up for it.
It reminded me of Lavernius Coles. Always dropping the easy passes and then making a tough, big play. So if we can continue to get something like that, I'd prefer to catch the easy passes. It makes things go a lot easier. But anyways, it's certainly our identity. Run the ball, let those running backs that we got pound the ball, let Travis run the ball, and then take our shots in the passing game when the opportunity arises. And, as long as we're efficient when we throw the ball and we don't drop passes and we make the plays that are there, it's a good offense. It really is.
So the Florida State has 9.8 yards per play. That's dominant.
That's insane.
24 first down, 6 and 9 on third. Only 60 plays. So, you look at the way that they control the game on the ground, which, you're not going to high input of plays, but only 3 penalties for 41 yards. So another great game in terms of not shooting themselves in the foot. Got to like what they did dominating a UMass team, which, while I hope he feels the pain after what he did at FSU with Sam Howell. But here's a comment. Last year, Florida State would have beat the team, would have had penalties and little separation. You could even say earlier this year that probably been the case. You agree with that, Steve?
Absolutely. It's hard to argue against that. Because we've seen it. We've seen us play teams as trash as UMass and not play well. And it's just that's who we've been. Yeah. Okay. But you're mentioning the plays. How many?
Vontez. Hold on.
How many?
Clearly, Vontez is not a
Florida State fan. He might be. Is he a fan of that trash program, Miami? Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. But North Carolina, we only had 52 plays on offense against North Carolina. 52. That's it. So that's really what our offense is. We're not going to be a team that puts up 80, 90 plays. We're going to be high 50s, low 60s, maybe high 60s, which is on the low end. That's when we're our best, is when we're doing that, So we're not going to be running up tempo, hurry up. That's just not what we do.
And I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yep. Sound mind.
So Norvell said. Yeah, Norvell says after the game he's really proud of our guys this week. It was a good week of work. Went out there and played a pretty clean game, and I agree with that. And you look at, Purdy, again, having the caveat of the opponent. I thought Chumba looked pretty good. Thought he made the offense, got the ball out really quickly. Placement was great. Had a nice command of the offense.
Absolutely. It was a lot of progress shown in how Purdy played today, even against a trash opponent. Yeah, but you can still look at certain things and what he showed last year. There's a lot of progress there, and it's enough to say there's a chance between Travis and Purdy and how they've been playing here lately that hopefully Duffy can redshirt next year. And that's ideally what you want. You don't want to play a true freshman, out of necessity. If the true freshman is that good, yeah, absolutely play him. But, this gives me hope that the only way Duffy will play next year is if he is that elite and that good, into where if he plays, he's going to dominate and have like a Sam Howell type freshman season. Because if he's not on that level, I think Purdy and Travis will be good enough to be able to hold him off and start and let him redshirt to where he can grow and get better, which is what you want to see. You don't want true freshmen playing unless they're elite.
Correct. And I think you and I have both been really high on AJ Duffy.
Love him.
Way before he committed.
Yeah.
I think he's a great fit for this offense.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, he probably enroll early. I think you have three guys that are going to compete for the job. I want to be the fan and say that the future's brighter back, but I think that what last few weeks and what FSU is bringing in, you have to feel. Even if you look at 2023 and Chris Parson, a guy who's having a phenomenal season, you have to look at that. But getting back to what we saw today, defense, they ran a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of crazy formations, and that's what they had to do in order to try to compete. But I thought overall the defense had a great game, and they didn't get a ton of pressure on their quarterback, but they played really sound ball.
Yeah, one of the things whenever teams come out and do all those fancy things and try to catch you off guard, and they know for the most part they're not going to sit there and do that the entire game and try to and just run the ball and go 10 play drives. They're trying to get big plays. They're trying to hit big plays. Okay, let's catch them off guard. Maybe we can catch them out of position and we get a big play for a big touchdown or something like that. generally what those teams are trying to do. So the fact that we didn't give that up, yeah, they had that nice the big screen pass, and they had like another I think a run or something like that here and there. But other than that, they didn't have that big play that went for a big huge touchdown. And to see that when we have given up so many plays like that, and obviously we didn't prepare for what UMass did. Like we prepared for the regular offense, yes, but to prepare for linemen lining up out wide and that kind of stuff, no, Florida State didn't prepare for that. They haven't really seen that. And so to still be able to stop that stuff and not give up those big plays, that shows a lot of progress in our players. You know, you can point to Fuller or whatever. I show a lot of I look at a lot of progress in our players and being able to communicate, because that's what's going to stop those things, is being able to communicate on the field with those players and the defensive backs and say, hey, this is what's going on and stuff like that. So to be able to not have those kind of big plays whenever UMass is strictly trying to game plan for that and trying to catch us off guard and we still don't give it up, that's huge to me. That's one of my biggest things I look at, is that despite all that stuff UMass was doing and trying to catch Florida State off guard, they didn't. We didn't do it because we're amazing athletes out there and, like, you know, some of the announcers saying, oh, it's Florida State, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's not why we stopped them, because overall Florida State isn't a Florida State defense talent-wise and physical-wise. We did it because we had better communication, and we're talking amongst each other and saying, this is what is going on, this is what we're seeing. And that's what we need.
So Dylan says that we got a head coach who's learning on the job. Seems like he is finding his footing in the strengths of the team. I think what you're trying to say is learning on the job in terms of figuring out his team. I agree. And I think that he's come to the realization that his team is what it is. You know, I think he really wanted to try to force the passing game, but really understanding that, you know, Florida State's still limited there. But, you know, one thing that Norvell is giving an offense, and that I know that Florida State fans don't necessarily want to take positives all the time. We're kind of a jaded fan base, but, you know, Norvell is elite as a game caller, and I think we see some of that maturation of his time at Florida State.
Yeah, you know, as far as like learning on the job, everybody, and I guarantee you Saban would say the same thing. You're always learning on the job. You know, if you're not, you're getting worse, and you're not going to be lasting much longer. So even Saban is saying will tell you he's learning on the job. Obviously, I don't think that's the point that's being made. I think what you said is correct. Like, Saban doesn't need to learn how to be a head coach, not Saban. Norvell doesn't need to learn how to be a head coach. He's been an established head coach, and he knows how to be a head coach. But he is absolutely learning this team. I think you're dead on that point, that he's learning this team and what the strengths are and stuff like that, and learning, most importantly, the personnel and what the personnel can do. You know, people are like, oh, well, he had last year, you know, but did he really? It was such a messed up year, and really now we're 7 games into this season, so we're really a season and a half in. You know, we're 16 games in, so yeah, about not even a whole season and a half technically game wise. So, you know, he's still learning the players, the personnel, what they can do, what they can't do, you know, and injuries have played a part, you know, especially like on the offensive line. Injuries have played a part. Injuries to Travis have played a part. So now that we're getting healthy and he's learning the personnel, you start to see a Norvell team, a physical, smash you in the mouth, running the game, running the ball type of defense, type of offense, you know, and a defense that's, you know, bringing it, you know, even though they're not completely healthy, bringing it on the defensive line and forcing people, hey, if you're going to run, you're not running between these tackles. You better try to kick it out, you know, and most of the runs we give up are when we break contain. And, you know, so yeah, it's good to see that he's learning that, you know, and I think this team is a lot better than some people realize. I really do.
So Dylan mentioned, did AJ Duffy why did Duffy get dropped in the update? I don't know. I question a lot of the rankings this year, just as last year. But I will tip a cap to Steve and I with our Unconquered Talk ratings. We knows a lot a lot of other people did. And, now he's just started at Florida State. But is that Jarvis Brownlee broke the rock after the game in the locker room. So Brownlee continues to be that top cover corner. He's grown into his role. I know he dropped that easy, but he made up for it. Still, players make plays. He made a play and was able to get that pick six, which I really think, for him, that's just going to continue to add a lot of confidence to a guy who's already, supremely confident in his abilities.
Yep, absolutely. The maturation from him and even like Jerry Jones and Knowles on the inside. And, if you look at them from the Notre Dame game to now, it's night and day. They've grown a lot. And some of that's just
correct.
A lot of it's just getting comfortable in the system and getting comfortable with what Fuller is asking them to do. And, you got to think like since since Brownlee's been on campus, we went from a quarters team under a 3-4 quarters team to a 4-3 quarters team to now running, a 4-2 man press scheme. It's a lot of change. And the whole defensive backfield is starting to get comfortable in that. And you can see them just continuing to progress and get used to the pattern matching and that kind of stuff. And it's nice to see the actual progression from game to game. And you can actually see that game to game.
Another Norvell on the game itself, dominating an inferior opponent. That's our job. We did what we needed to do. We were dominant in a football game. We will continue to get better. We have a big challenge ahead of us next week.
Yep.
And confidence in this game, confidence in any part of it is big. I think once this team got that first win, I think they've played a lot. I said it, I think, last week too. Podcast we had after Carolina is that Florida State got kind of off the schneid, got the monkey off their back, and now I think they're playing a little more relaxed ball. I think next week is going to be a sign of where this program is in terms of, competing with a team that, they're down, a really good defense. It's going to be an interesting matchup for a team that can't score with a damn in Clemson versus a team like FSU who can run the ball, control the clock, and still put up 30 points a game, which they've done now 3 games in a row. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game next week.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm curious to see how Clemson looks against Pitt and, see if DJ starts to get into groove. But even if he does get into groove at this point, who is he throwing to? Because the top receivers are out for Clemson, and I think they're supposed to be out for next week as well. Thank you, Kyle. And it's going to be interesting to see, and same thing on the defensive line as well. They got a lot of injuries there too. So, people say, oh, it's an elite defense, but look at what Clemson's done the last couple of weeks, and trying to stop the run against like Syracuse. Syracuse ran all over them. So if Clemson still has a lot of those injury issues and DJ hasn't found his groove and confidence yet, that's a game Florida State can win. And that would be quite amazing to go from 0-4 to 4-4, beating North Carolina and Clemson. And, North Carolina on the road and then beating a Clemson team. Like, who would have thought that beginning of the preseason? Okay, yeah, we're going to be 4-4, and our wins are going to be against at North Carolina and versus Clemson, and then Syracuse and UMass, but you're going to lose to Jacksonville State. What a wild ride that would be.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have ever thought that.
No,
but
no.
I'll take it. But I know when on this particular game, we can talk a little bit about Clemson and like kind of preview that here in a minute. But wrapping up UMass, What are the three takeaways you have from this game? If you have
My biggest takeaway. Yeah, I mean, the biggest takeaway definitely to me is the learning process that we've done, especially in Norvell from Jacksonville State to this, because this is a much different game than Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State's got a lot of Power 5 transfers and stuff like that. So talent-wise, they're probably a little bit more talented than UMass. It wouldn't surprise me if Jacksonville State actually beat UMass on the field. So to see that us, struggle in that game and lose, and then to come out here and you could hear some of it in how Norvell was talking, like, we're not taking anybody for granted. We're not overlooking anybody. I think that's a direct cause of what happened against Jacksonville State. And I think he's saying, like, we learned our lesson. And how they came out and dominated today, I do. I think they learned their lesson, and they're not going to be overlooking anybody, and they're learning how to come out game after game after game and perform. And we haven't seen that in 5-6 years, so that's takeaway number one. And then takeaway number two is just our ground game, man. It's impressive to see. It's impressive to watch. Yes, UMass really is terrible, but watching us be able to come out and just put up big run after big run after big run and just dominate, and with many different running backs at that. It's not like it was just one running back. Corbin did well. Travis had big runs. Toafili came in after, being hurt the last few weeks and had a really good game. I think he had like 13 yards per carry, something like that. Ward came out and was his typical self. Williams came in and had some good runs and a real nice touchdown run.
Really great run on that touchdown.
It was nice. Very patient, watched his blocks get set up and then burst through for a nice touchdown. So to see 4 running backs and a quarterback that can run the ball, be able to do that, even against UMass, and having that many people you can run on, and people still say, oh, our running backs are average. Yeah, blow it out your rear. There's nothing average about these running backs. Nothing at all. They are very good. So I don't know if I can have those are my 2 big takeaways.
I would say that I think that I would say I don't know if I have 3, maybe, I have just the same as you probably. The running game is really impressive. They have what looks like 5 capable guys who can run the ball. Travis and Corbin, Ward, Toafili, and Williams, guys who can make plays, and they all have different styles. Maybe Toafili and Ward are probably a little bit more similar, but they all are very efficient runners. I think that it's the last few weeks we've seen FSU be able to get a little bit more separation in the passing game. So I think that we're starting to see a little bit schematically them being different, getting those guys more, and I think that's all based off the run game. So I think I can both agree that's going to be needed as we head into the back end of the schedule, the last 5 games. And I would say the third one is I really like what, like you said, what I'm seeing from the defensive backfield the past several weeks. I do think part of that is the lack of rotation that we saw earlier in the year, but I think they also just found the pieces where they fit. Clellian comes in and has played well. I know Renardo Green's been hurt, but he's played well. Dent's been out. Travis is just can't get out of his own way. And you have the maturation of Jones, who is healthy now and is a really good athlete, and he's coming into his own. He's only 2 years in of playing cornerback. He played wide receiver mostly in high school. So, you're starting to see better communication too, which is what was really awful early in the season. So, but this is post-game chop up with Nate, Steve, Voice of College Football. Make sure that you listen every Wednesday for the live call show at 8:00. It's going to be a interesting week next week. You got Florida State, Clemson. You got Georgia, Florida. I can't wait to see that spoonful of ass whipping come in for the Gators. But let's preview a little bit what comes up next week. So Florida State and Clemson. Florida State has not looked good against Clemson since 2016. And the last year has just been complete, just not even in the same stratosphere, tight domination. So, this year, Florida State has, I think, found their footing. Clemson continues to struggle despite having elite talent at wide receiver. They don't have any kind of running game. Their offensive line, even though they've done well recruiting the trenches, is not done great. And now there's legit questions about Lele. I think it's how you say his last name. I'm not sure. I don't really care. But
Uchiwali, I don't know. Ukulele, I don't know.
Yeah, if he's the quarterback of the future there. So, defensively, they're as dominant as they have been. It's going to be an interesting game, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very curious to see.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not a betting person, but I'm very curious to see what the line is tomorrow on that game, which obviously, we won't really have a good idea on that until we see how Clemson plays today. If Clemson plays how they have been playing, being at home, if we're, it wouldn't surprise me to see it be like a Clemson -3, Clemson -4, something like that. I'd find it hard to see Florida State being favored, but I just don't see how they would be able to put Clemson, as a huge favorite, on the road when they just haven't played well. Obviously today is going to show a lot, but I think we can run the ball on Clemson. If our line is healthy and, we got Scott and Gibbons and Smith and either Johnson or Love Taylor out there and Washington, and the running backs are healthy and Travis is healthy, I think we can run the ball on them. The big key to me is going to be, do we hit a couple big plays in the passing game? And when those, like we said earlier, like when those opportunities arise, do we take advantage of them? If we can do that, we can score, in the 20s, on that defense. And if we do that, we'll win. Unless all of a sudden DJ plays like the 5-star quarterback that he was recruited as. But if he plays how they've been playing, and there's little reason to think that that's going to change, especially with the receivers out, we get 3-4 big plays and we're all of a sudden looking at 21, 24 points. And Clemson's going to struggle to get that many. They have every game against every single defense that they've played. I don't know why that would change now. Unless all of a sudden their receivers
are what they are.
Healthy. They are what they are at this point. We're 6 games in. You don't typically see all of a sudden after 6 games, all of a sudden, boom, now this offense is magically good when they've been, their offense has been for Florida State fans, their offense has been as bad as Florida State's offensive line has been pass blocking the last 4 years. That's how bad their offense is. And you don't all of a sudden magically get good that quick. It just doesn't. They are what they are. So they might turn around and have a good game, a better game, but I don't know. There's a real chance for Florida State to win here. And, I think the ESPN put that graphic on there, like our ACC network did, that it's like 25% chance for Florida State to win.
I thought every remaining game was awful. And the projected percentages, it was awful.
Way off. But some of that is because they in those they don't really, the Jacksonville State game, the Wake Forest game is going to matter as much to them as the North Carolina game and the UMass game, which I get. It's hard to be when you're trying to be objective. Those games have to matter just as much and the win-loss record they do. So they're not looking just at what Florida State's done the last 3 weeks and the progression. They don't really play. That doesn't really play into the game and into those projections. That's why I'm interested in that Vegas thing, because Vegas will take all that into account. So when we come out and see what the line is tomorrow, that's going to really tell us, what people think, at least, of what we have. So
we got Nick from Tomahawk Steaks. Nico there's balling with some tomahawk steaks. I'm going to celebrate too. While Bell coming to Tallahassee and getting his tail kicked in. But I want to read this, Steve. Mike Norvell mentioned that he talked to Mackenzie Milton later in the game, and that Milton himself suggested that the younger quarterbacks get playing time. And that's one reason why they brought this kid in is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding of what it is. And you know, it's a great story that he made it back to where he made it back. But you know, before we wrap this up, and I give my Clemson thoughts, I want to say that 3-0 in this shirt for this year. So I'm gonna not wear this shirt for every. So I got to be going now. So you know, my Florida State Live Good shirt is I think it's a good luck charm. But no, I think I think it's going to be a really low scoring game. I think it's going to be a game where your Clemson's defense is going to really have to shut down FSU offensively. And you know, we saw last week against Syracuse. Syracuse had a lot of success running against them, and I think that Florida State can match that success and even maybe better. And I think that's where it really has a added advantage is on offense, which is crazy to think. And as you said, Steve, you know, their wide receivers being out, it looks like they're going to be out today and next week, which is, you know, very, very, very painful offense that just cannot run the ball at all. Now they're missing their top three targets at wide receiver. So if Clemson's going to win, they're going to have to run DJ probably 20 times to throw the balance of the defense off. They're going to have to make him a runner. I'm like you. I'm very interested to see this point spread. I do think that if the game was in Tallahassee, I'd be very comfortable in saying that I think Florida State would win. We'll see, man. If Florida State can play like they had the past 2 weeks, I think it's a game they win, just because of the fact that Clemson cannot score. I think that Florida State can do well enough running the ball to put up 2 to 3 drives and put up points. I just think that's what it comes down to.
Right.
But we'll see. But again, post-game chop-up, host by the voice of college football. Make sure that you listen every Wednesday to the call-in show. You know, Florida State takes care of business today. They beat UMass 59-3, dominating Walt Bell, the ground. Every running back scores a touchdown today.
Mm-hmm.
Except
Douglas.
You have, except for Douglas. And then, you know, Travis is his efficient self. So great feeling coming out of this game because Florida State did what they were supposed to, probably for the first time since 2015, 2016. So Florida State now is 10-4 in the season. Clemson next week, Steve. So we're excited for that. But we appreciate y'all listening. We'll be here next week after the Clemson game. Hopefully we'll be able to celebrate Florida State snapping that streak. And back into the season, Steve, Florida State can get away with Clemson. They're still in contention for the division title.
Hey, why not? Why not? I mean, we'll need Wake Forest to lose. We'll need Wake Forest to lose 3 of the last 4, and us win out.
Yeah, but why not? You know,
why not? Why not?
Mathematically, still a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Wake Forest has looked unbeatable, and the remaining games are not easily winnable. Like they can lose all 3 of those, like 3 or 4 of those. So why not? You know, and that's really what it comes down to. If we went out and they lose 3 of the last 4 in the ACC, we're in. You know, we're in. Why not?
But let's be next week before we get ahead of ourselves. So we'll talk to you on next week. You know, we appreciate y'all listening in. As always, go Noles. See you next week.
Go Noles.